I mean, I know you can hear me, but I wonder if these things are working correctly. Okay. Very good. Let me just say that this is long overdue. I am Ben Tomai. I serve as the Speaker of the House. And as I'm sure most of you know, tomorrow we are going to be debating and final passing HCR 2060. And as the sponsor of the bill, it was important for me to invite the House to come down here and actually see what is going on, to see it ourselves, to tour the border. And so we did that very early this morning, 1 a.m. or so, so we got back very early, late, a few hours later. What was it, 4:30 or so, that we got here, we got back, and it's been meetings in many ways since, and including, obviously, I want to thank the hospital for hosting us here. It was a great discussion, although short, probably too short, but incredibly important nonetheless. And I can tell you that having seen myself now, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, they can speak for themselves, but having seen with my own eyes what's going on at the border is a very different experience than just having theoretical knowledge of what's actually happening. So I think every American that can should interest themselves more in what's happening. The costs are skyrocketing. A little fact that I've learned is from 1979 to 2009, so it's over 30 years, we had less people crossing the border than we have under this administration, just for the last 3 years, which is unconscionable. We're creating a humanitarian disaster. We have got obviously major issues with human trafficking, with fentanyl, and HCR 2060 is attempting to help and do something about all of those pieces. Now, I will fully admit to everyone that this is fundamentally the federal government's job, but they are not doing it. It's really that simple. They're not doing it, and so we are doing what we can and doing only what we think is right in terms of getting some tools in the toolbox for our law enforcement to use to enforce laws. And by the way, the federal government is not enforcing federal law. That's part of the issue here. And so one of the things that I've personally found most interesting going to the border last night is, we went through a couple of different locations and saw things, including tunnels and whatnot, but then at one point we were at our final stop and we hadn't seen anyone yet, and we were talking about what was going on the other side, and all of a sudden the light came on, Border Patrol, what was it, 50 yards away or so from us. There were 40 migrants just standing against the fence. Everybody was quiet. We had no idea. We would have never noticed that they were there had Border Patrol not just happened to be there right then. And they were processing these migrants. And they weren't even on this side of the border. I mean, this side of the fence. I don't want to misspeak. They were on this side of the border, but not on this side of the fence. And that is very interesting. So now, because of this administration's policies, they don't even have to get on the other side of the fence that we've put up to stop migration. We are doing it for them. We're processing, we're opening the gate, we're letting them in, and we're sending them to anywhere that they want to go. I mean, I've said this before, and I quite frankly don't have any other way of saying this other than we have lost our minds as a country. And if we don't start paying attention, the human cost, we're already seeing it. In Maricopa County alone, we're losing, 5 to 6 people a day now to fentanyl overdoses. I mean, we are literally killing Americans and allowing that and enabling that to happen. This has got to stop. What does HCR 2060 do? Very briefly, not what you've heard. It is, I'm a migrant myself. I'm sorry, not a migrant. I'm an immigrant myself. Came to this country legally. Was separated from my parents for nearly 2 years while they made their way here legally. And so I can speak from personal experience. This is not an anti-immigration bill. It has nothing to do with that. The bill itself is very clear. The two provisions that are very clear that would become effective upon the effective date as soon as it's passed would be that there are stricter penalties for fentanyl, and especially for fentanyl that's sold that causes the death of another individual. Pretty self-explanatory. Then on the benefit side, it strengthens and adds teeth to the E-Verify program and also forces the use of the SAVE program, the federal SAVE program, to all government agencies, including counties and cities and whatnot. And then the one that got all the attention, much like the Texas legislation, it makes it a crime to enter the state of Arizona somewhere from a foreign country, anywhere other than a point a port of entry. And that's actually very important. Now, it is probable cause is the standard, not reasonable suspicion. And so, by definition, police officers will not be able to pull someone over just because they look different than you and I. That's not in the bill. I know that's what the narrative is, but that's simply not in the bill. And as such, I would encourage everyone to actually look at what we've done and look at what's in the bill, and most likely, actually, pretty much guaranteed at this point, you're going to get a chance to vote on it in November. So with that, I want to go ahead and thank you once again. Thank you to the hospital for hosting us. Thank you for all of you for showing interest in this. Tomorrow will be a big day in the state legislature, and unfortunately, I have to run to a budget meeting with the governor at 3:30, and so I'm going to be running in a moment here, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our majority leader who was instrumental in setting this up. So thank you. Leo?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, everybody. First, want to say thank you to Supervisor Lyons for setting everything up. Couldn't have done this without you, and appreciate you making this happen in such a short notice. Also, Representative Dunn, Representative Pena, Representative Carbone all represent this area, and so it was great to have them here today in their territory that they represent, because they know this area better than any of us. But I'm going to be quick. There's a lot of people that want to speak, and I just want to hit home on the part about the areas that nobody wants to talk about. And when you have this happening, with this illegal immigration happening, the migrants coming over, you have things that are happening as well, like rape, murders that are occurring with a lot of these individuals coming across. And nobody wants to talk about it, but we have to talk about it. You know, we obviously visited a facility today that we discussed these individuals, these women and children who are, and boys and men that are being sexually assaulted as they come either across or in this area. In what world do we live in that we're just going to turn a blind eye to that? It's got to stop. I mean, the fact that we are sitting here, people are getting angry that we're putting a bill forward that's going to put an end to this. It just doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So, like the Speaker stated, when the federal government is not doing their job, it's up for us as a state to move forward. The 10th Amendment is in the Constitution for a reason. It's in there because when the federal government is refusing to do their job, then it's up to us to step up. We've done this 2 years ago. HB 2696 was a bill that allowed the state of Arizona to arrest and prosecute human smugglers for the first time in history. That came forward because of a situation where a vehicle was pulled over in Phoenix. The federal government couldn't come and detain these individuals, so they were let go because the state law did not exist for our local law enforcement to arrest them. This bill is doing the same thing. It's saying if the federal government can't do their job, at least allow the state of Arizona law enforcement to do the job. That's all we're saying. And so in times like this, when obviously we don't have the people, the federal government doesn't have the manpower to do their job properly, then let us do it. Let us do something to at least have a tool in the toolbox that allows us to put an end to what's going on. So I hope the public understands that when they go to vote for this. This will be on the ballot in November, that this is protecting the state of Arizona, this is protecting our citizens, this is protecting the United States of America, because it's sending the message that we're not going to allow this to happen on our turf. If we can spend the money and the time to send our troops overseas to protect other borders, and we can't do it for our own border, we are a broken country. And I'm not okay with that. I know my colleagues behind me are not okay with that. We're asking the people of Arizona to please vote and change that so we can start doing something to protect our state and protect our country. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to our Majority Whip, Teresa Martinez. She'll have a few words, and we'll continue down the line. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having us. I am Teresa Martinez. I am the Majority Whip. Thank you to our dear friend Jonathan Lyons, County Supervisor, for we could not have done this without you. And we greatly appreciate your expertise and the love that you have for Yuma. Let me just say right now to the people of Yuma, I love Yuma. You've got the best food, the best looking people. It is fantastic in Yuma. All of the state of Arizona is really a unique place. And one of the things that we have that we can rejoice about is the fact that we as a people are very caring people. We love to live our fullest lives to the best extent for our family. Now let's talk about this from more of a mother. I am a single mother of a young boy who's 22. It is difficult. There are very limited resources that the state of Arizona has, very limited resources. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that our veterans are taken care of. Who's taking care of our veterans? Who's taking care of our single moms? Who's taking care of our law enforcement and our first responders? I have compassion for anyone seeking a better life. However, we have to do it legally. Right now, people are being in danger crossing this border with people who are going to exploit them. We are crossing this threshold where we as a state, we as a country need to say we have to put a stop to it. The federal government is not here to help us. They have been MIA. They have been missing in action. They don't care. They don't, because if they did care, they would have done something by now. Instead, what they're doing is they're throwing up roadblocks to prevent people from the sheriffs and the first responders and the hospitals from even getting funding. Now, what can we as the state of Arizona do? What we have to do is we have to start laying down parameters of what we will tolerate as a state. We must make sure that we take care of the people, the citizens of Arizona. They must come first. I have compassion, but they must come first. When a woman is pregnant, her health, her well-being, both mentally and physically, is something that is a life journey. It is because we have one of the greatest medical providers and health, I think, in the state of Arizona, that we as American citizens are able to give birth to healthy children. We were told that when a woman comes from Mexico and she's lacked the prenatal care, that it is even worse for her and her child to be born. And what we must also consider is, where do they go from here? We have to take control of our border, make sure that we provide the resources to our citizens, and then make sure that we have to push back on the federal government so that they handle what they must legally be required to handle. My colleagues here are amazing people. We are all here because we care very much about the people of Arizona. We do. Sincerely, we care very much about them. And we want to make a difference. We think this bill is going to help everyone in the state of Arizona. I encourage everyone to read the bill before just, knee-jerk reaction, it's a racist bill. I am a woman of color. I am Hispanic. My grandparents come from Mexico. Do you know who we didn't see last night at 4 o'clock in the morning? I didn't talk to any Mexicans. I talked to people from Paraguay, people from Colombia. I know I've gone down to the border and Haitians have been there. This is not about a Latino thing. This is about a security issue for the state of Arizona. Now, with that, I am very passionate. I will be here for questions. I would like to turn it over to the Chairman of Commerce, who can talk about a little bit of what his thoughts were. Again, thank you to everyone who hosted us. Mr. Justin Wilmoth.
Howdy, everybody. State Representative Justin Wilmoth, that's LD2 in far north Phoenix. And even though my district is nowhere near the border, it's a very important issue for my constituents. The top two issues, in fact, at least right now, are the economy and border security. And this current administration has its hands in both being in very, very bad shape. Last night was my first time on the border to really see it firsthand. I'd heard the stories from colleagues. I'd seen news reports and things over the years. And what really jumped out at me is just how routine it's all been. You've got the Border Patrol doing their job. They're doing everything they're supposed to do that they can do. And you've got these illegal immigrants who are coming over, and they're standing there very calmly. They know the drill. They've been told what to do when they get there. They've been told how to act. They get processed. They get taken wherever. And everything's really calm and orderly. And that really bothered me because it's become routine. And we can't let something like this become routine, because a country is only as good as its economy and as its border security. And that's what this is. This is not an illegal immigration issue anymore. This is really a border security issue, because you're talking about drug running, you're talking about sex trafficking, which is absolutely abhorrent, and you're talking about drugs. Fentanyl, it's not cocaine and heroin anymore, and those things were dangerous enough back in the 80s. Now we're talking about something where one little pill can absolutely kill you. What if you get a bad canister of pills that you thought were totally safe, and it kills you? This is what we're dealing with now. And I really appreciate Supervisor Lyons taking us out last night, because sleep schedule aside, it was actually really fascinating to see it all. We saw, and going back to the routineness of it all, We saw car lights in the distance in Mexico, driving to certain spots, stopping, and presumably letting people out to find their way across the border to, again, go into that very orderly process, which we've just accepted as part of our life. That's unacceptable. And it was very, very interesting to see that because I think they could see us. We were standing at the border watching this stuff, and they, I think, made moves because we were there. And they went to different parts of that area. So that was very, very interesting to see, and that it's just this dance. It's just happening. And it happens every night. We saw those 40 folks from Colombia and Paraguay, and they've been trained on what to say, and they all said the same thing. They said we're being persecuted for these reasons. And it was just all very orderly. And I even, Mr. Lyons told us about the app. That blew my mind. That you can get on an app now through the Customs and Border Patrol, and like, what is it, Jonathan? You can, and you can use that app to go anywhere in this country and be in this country. That blows my mind. We're actually encouraging this stuff, and I think that's absolutely unacceptable. That's exactly right. What every Arizonan, what every American needs to know is that this is coming to all of your neighborhoods. It's coming to North Phoenix. It's going to Albuquerque. It's going to Denver. It's going everywhere. And this is not a race issue. Representative Martinez hammered it home. It's absolutely a safety issue for our country, and it's gone beyond just trying to stop small-time drug smugglers. It's about, as Americans, we need to defend these women that are being sex trafficked and kids that are being abused, and we need to protect our own people from the drug issues that are coming their way. And then again, gun running, safety issues. There's stories of legend out of Laredo and Nuevo Laredo, the violence on that part of the border in Texas. We don't want it to get worse here. So we have to be prescient and be on top of things so that we can not go down those roads. So I was just very impacted by what I saw last night and just how it's just all happening every night. And an entire side of our country says, oh, it's not a big deal. We should just let it keep happening. I'm not going to stand for that as long as I'm in my office. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop. I believe the hospital, Yuma Regional, is. Sure. Yeah, please, sir. We'll go to the hospital now, and I'll be available later.
Thank you. Again, as I mentioned to the delegation before, we are in a business of saving lives. We don't judge people who are at our door. It's a life and death situation. We'll do the best we can. The resources are limited. Last 9 months we took care of 90 migrants. We really appreciate access and giving us the ability to bill under emergency access. But still, we have only received roughly $15,000 of reimbursement. Again, I think we are pleading our case. I think this situation is real. Very unlike other hospitals that don't need to strategize, but how will they provide care to migrants? We do that. We do that, again, for anyone who seeks care in the walls of this hospital. Life and death situation is important. I think we plead that the resources allocated to this community for our resources would help not only the migrants but also people who seek care in the walls of this hospital. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Representative Quang Nguyen from Legislative District 1, which is all of Yavapai County. I'm excited about the provision on fentanyl. As the chairman of Judiciary, in the last 4 years or so, I've been dealing with fentanyl dealers and trying to find a way to criminalize and give law enforcement another tool in the toolbox. And fortunately, this year we had HB 2245 signed into law that if you have 200 grams or more of fentanyl, you will automatically, if convicted, go to jail for at least 5 years. I'm excited about it. And let's take a look at the human cost. Average in the last 3 years, more than 100,000 Americans killed of fentanyl poisoning. It's not overdose, it's poisoning because all you have to do is take one pill. So keep that in mind. It's an unbelievable cost of human lives, and the federal government is not looking at it, okay? And so just this morning alone, I got a text from Sheriff Rhodes of Yavapai County. They intercepted 1 million pills, 1 million pills in 2023. Think about it. The population of Yavapai County is 247,000. Imagine that for a second, too. According to the DEA, 70% of those pills contain lethal dose. That makes it 700,000 pills that they intercepted in Yavapai County in 2023 to be of lethal dose. Just got a text about half an hour ago from Commander James Edelstein of PVPD, Prescott Valley PD. 2023 intercepted 46,000 pills Population of Prescott Valley, 47,000. Up to this point, in 2024, they intercepted over 4,600 pills in the small town of Prescott Valley. Imagine that. So I would encourage you once again to read HCR 2060 and support it and vote for it. I too am a war immigrant. I'm also a person of color, and approximately 30,000 Chinese enter this country illegally. So in no way at all I'm in fear that I'm going to be pulled over for no reason. So I would urge you all to take a look at the bill and not buy into that narrative that this is a racist bill. Thank you. Representative Gillette.
Thank you. John Gillette, LD 30, Mojave County, La Paz, and a little piece of Maricopa. If you think this issue doesn't touch you where you are in Arizona, it touches every single state. It touches our entire country. In Mojave County, we have a location where they do a bus transfer. So they leave this border sector, they get on a bus, and they come to our county, and they get on another bus, and they end up in Las Vegas. So they can be in this country less than 24 hours and end up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, what Speaker Thomas said was very critical, that yes, this is a federal issue, but we also have federal laws that are not being enforced. And I would like to draw your attention to Section 8, 1324A and B of the U.S. Code. It deals with facilitation of a crime and facilitation of illegal immigration. This morning while we were on the border, we got out of the vehicles, we were against the border wall, walking around, and I found a baggage claim. This is a Department of Homeland Security baggage claim, and I picked a couple up off the ground and I gave some to our reporter teams, and I will post it online. But this baggage claim is given to illegals, that it's a perforated claim, so they have a copy, we have a copy, and there's a number on it. So are we facilitating their entry into this country and their transportation through the CBP app across the United States? I mean, we're a sovereign nation. We're supposed to have borders for a reason because our citizens come first. You heard from the hospital here the amount of resources that they are expending to treat illegals and other migrants coming across the border from 165 countries that speak multiple languages, and they're only getting a 50% reimbursement. At what point does this hospital fail and the citizens of this country and the residents of Yuma have nowhere else to go? I mean, this is a remote area of our state, just like Mojave County is. We're way up in the middle of nowhere, and we rely on our regional hospitals. We rely on our small hospitals as that first level of care to save your life. They can't continue to operate at a 50% reimbursement. At some point, the federal government has to do their job, and when they don't, which we have absolute proof of, as you heard from Chairman Wilmoth, we saw the vehicle stop on the road in Mexico, and they walked this way. We went down to the border fence, and we'll be posting this online, down to the border fence, and we spoke to a gentleman from Bogota. He was wearing a white coat, white pants, white shoes, and carrying a white bag. He was not dirty in any way at all. His shoes were clean, his clothes were clean, he was well groomed, and he made it to the border wall, or inside the country to our side of the wall, clean. Like he had just gotten off a bus, walked on a paved dam to an area to be received by Border Patrol. Border Patrol's mission is not to facilitate trafficking into this country, but that's what they're forced to do under this administration. We have no other choice as a state to stop it. This bill, it gives us one tool, one avenue to try and fight this, and we owe it to the people of Arizona and frankly the entire United States to bolster our sovereign border and be a sovereign nation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Tim Dunn, Legislative District 25, born and raised here in Yuma. Our district goes up to the west side of Phoenix. And first I want to thank, again, Jonathan Lyons for the work you do with the supervisors. I want to thank Sheriff Wilmot. We got a briefing by him, all the things that the sheriffs do to work with this situation. We want to thank all of our first responders that are on the front lines, and we especially want to thank our Customs and Border Patrol officers. They do a job day in and day out, and they're really working hard to do their job. And so I want to thank my colleagues. As you look, we had a couple that had to leave, but the whole state's basically represented. We had Mrs. Griffin, who's from Cochise County. We had a few of us who were down in her neck of the woods last Thursday and Friday looking at with Sheriff Daniels down there. We've got the two legislators here from the northwest part of the state. We've got Yuma represented with Michelle Pena and myself and Mr. Carbone. Then we also have Justin Wilmoth from Central Arizona. So you have the whole snapshot. It doesn't just affect the border communities. What's going on the border affects the whole state. And we're here to talk about what we're going to vote on tomorrow. And as you look at this bill, let me tell you a few things that it doesn't do. It does not allow our first responders or our sheriffs and our first responders and our police agents to racially profile. They have to have probable cause. They're going to have camera data. They're going to be working with the CBP, knowing people that have crossed have to have probable cause in order to pull them over or to apprehend them exactly on the border or out in the desert with the surveillance system that we have. So that's the first misnomer we have to say. It does not allow racial profiling. And this is not about our Mexico friends, producing 90% of the lettuce in the country. We have legal immigration that comes across daily, and this is not about that. This is not about that at all. This is about our friends in Mexico, so it's not about that. It's about picking up those that are in between the 2 points of entries, the port of entry. So it's about the gotaways. We have the CBP taking care of the ones that are crossing, but you have the gotaways that are getting away in the desert. Those are doing that because they are not going to qualify for asylum. They're the ones that have the bad records. They're the ones either transporting human smuggling, someone that doesn't want to give themselves up because they're in human smuggling, or they're doing the drugs. And so they don't want to get caught because there's a reason. And so those are the gotaways. And we have thousands that we haven't received, but we are able to do that. What this bill does is allow our sheriffs to apprehend them and detain them, and we can send them back if they so choose, or we can incarcerate them, and then we can talk about funding that in the future. But that's what this bill does, at the option of the sheriffs in those jurisdictions as you look at that. What this bill does not do, it does not bring back those people who died from fentanyl overdoses. It does not bring back my cousin's daughter, my cousin's daughter, Audra Kissel. It doesn't bring back my brother-in-law's son, Patrick Bichard. This bill will put people in jail for a longer period of time if they knowingly sell fentanyl that kills someone. It will not bring back those loved ones we've lost. There's a lot of things that it is right in this bill, and I think it's important that we put it to the voters. And I thank my colleagues for coming down here to really see what's going on firsthand. We thank the hospital because we can't get our hospital, put them out of business because they need to be able to take care of the rest of the citizens of Yuma County. And I appreciate the things that you do. And with that, we'll answer questions. Yes, ma'am.
Biden is expected to unveil immigration policy this week, maybe as early as tomorrow. Do you know what that encompasses and your thoughts on it?
My guess, because just listening to the talk shows yesterday, is they could not get a bill passed in Congress. I believe he's going to take some of those provisions that were in that bill and put them before as an executive order. That bill allows a certain amount of immigrants to come across before they hit a threshold, before they close the border. If you're going to close the border at 5,000 people or 8,500 people, why can't you close the border at 0? Why can't you make them go through the points of entry? What they're saying is we're going to continue to allow them. It's my guess. I have not been briefed on from them, but my guess is it's provisions of the bill that they could not pass through Congress. That the Republicans said this is not border security. This is just allowing the throughput and getting more funding to allow them to be able to, the Border Patrol, to do this faster and easier. It doesn't mean you're stopping the security of the border. So that's my guess of what's going to be.
No president so far has been able to get down to 0. So what is an appropriate number you think that's actually doable? Because right now it seems like he's suggesting once it's hitting daily encounters at 2,500 between points of entry, then it would reopen once that number declines to 1,500. So it is a smaller number. What do you think is appropriate?
You want to answer that?
Can I take your
Yeah, I'll let them, yeah.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to say, to me, what is appropriate is people who deserve asylum. Is it 1,000 tomorrow? Is it 500 tomorrow? That are actually from countries that deserve asylum, coming through the port of entries. And if we need to make that faster, so that those people do not have to wait in line in Mexico for 2 weeks, but if they actually deserve asylum and they're not just getting a date later, I mean, why should we pick a number? We should make sure that they're vetted before they come into the country, that they deserve asylum, and not this number that says, we're going to see if you deserve asylum, and you're going to come back in 2 years, and is it going to be 1,000, 1,800, is it 3,000? That's an arbitrary number. We should have those people that truly deserve it before we pick a number. Go ahead.
And so for the reality of that is 2,500 the actual number? Because when we look at how many people are coming into the border illegally, it's a guess. You know, we arrived and there was about anywhere between 30 to 35 people there, including children. Prior to us arriving was another 40. So 2,500 and then what? I think that's a make-believe number. I think that is a 25 that we account for over here while we have thousands still coming. And then we have to say, if we're going to allow 2,500 people, which people? Women and children? Men of military age? Then we start getting into this gray area of now that we're, disenfranchising, folks from Mexico. Do we prioritize the 2,500 from the folks from Mexico, women and children? Or do we take the folks from Paraguay? Or the Chinese? Or the Haitians? So for us to say 2,500, is not, 2,500 of great normal people. Which people? We have to secure the border to not one illegal immigrant should cross into the United States. Not one. That is not because we're ungracious and we think that that is too much. That is because we have to secure our citizens first. And if we can do it at 2,500, then we should be able to do it at 0. I think that this is the administration's way of getting in as many people as we can and then overrunning our hospitals, our welfare and our access, our homeless, and now we are our diseases. Measles are now taking a back. This is a bad idea, this is a bad policy, and this is completely insane.
Well, Teresa kind of stole my thunder there, but let me ask you the question. What is the correct number of people that can come into your home unauthorized in the middle of the night? I think that number is 0. Between the ports of entry, there should be 0 on illegal immigration. We should not be allowing anyone in. That's why we have a port of entry. And as the whip said, we need to vet every single person that comes across. Everyone is not going to qualify for asylum. Everyone doesn't have a special problem. Economic migration is not an asylum qualifier. Just because you want to make more money and your country has a poor economy, look at the amount of money that we give in foreign aid to most of Central America, South America, Africa. The amount of money that we give to Africa, and we just had our American soldiers kicked out of Africa. The correct amount between the ports of entry is 0. Thank you.
So real quick, just to touch on, I know we're running out of time, but I think the question we need to ask the President and administration, President Biden, is why now? I mean, this has been going on for 4 years. We've been doing press conferences, I know for sure, at the Capitol for 4 years now, talking about how the surge has been happening over his administration. The question now is we're now in June of 2024, and now he's going to come and do something? I mean, it's too late. You have tens of millions of people that have now come through. You have all these situations with crime, with fentanyl, with trafficking, with all these different things that have been happening all this time, and we've been pleading to him for help. We've been asking the city of Arizona under the Ducey administration, I know under the Hobbs administration, they've asked, we need your help, and we've been ignored. So my frustration, our frustration as a caucus, why we're here at this point of presenting a bill that's saying, let's give us the power, is we've been asking, and there's been no answer. And so it's frustrating for us, for him to say now, oh, I'm going to do something in the 11th hour. It's too late. And so now it's up to us to say, let's do something as a state, let's protect ourselves, because we can't put ourselves in a position again, whoever's in D.C. as the president, and to depend on them to get the job done. So we're going to do it ourselves, and this is why we need to make sure this bill passes.
Kind of just a question to clarify,
Yeah.
if everyone's studying my question. Okay, just to clarify in 2060, I mean, can you talk about the increased spending that would require? Because obviously that would lead to more law enforcement, more judges, things like that in the jail. Because my understanding is the Arizona Constitution says that you need to clarify where that spending's coming from, and it can't come from the general fund. So I just want to clarify where that.
For the actual, what it's going to cost for how we fund the incarcerations?
Yeah.
Well, if the voters first have to put it on the ballot, and when they say that it's in the Constitution, we can do this. When they put this amendment in there, then I believe we can authorize the funds to be able to use that as because it's now been told by the voters, voter protected, that this is what we want done, and we have to we already work with our county, Cochise County, and some funding, we already backfilled some other funding, so I don't think that, there's not a blank check. We don't have control of the budget, but it'll have to be a work in progress when the voters do decide that this is gonna happen. I do believe it would be constitutional. But there's no mandate that says, there's no mandate, there's no method that says Yuma County can do all these things and we're just gonna write you a check. It's gonna have to be a work in process as we balance that, the will of the people.
I was just going to say, and about the cost savings.
Well, yeah, and what we've been told is if it's cost $1,200 a person now to actually what we're doing, the long-term effects, what the hospital said, and what we're actually doing is going to reduce our cost over time. It's been proven in the past, and so we think that the cost of the American people is going to be a lot less. It's just going to be a hiccup as we do that, as we transition from the actual incarcerations first, and as you send that message, it'll be going down. Yes, ma'am.
What about Operation Stone Garden with the San Luis Police Department? I know that they kind of had this, they've had this for the last like 15 years, and they've helped Border Patrol, So
Yeah,
would this kind of come in effect?
This does not change Operation Stone Garden. That's going to continue. The sheriff's talked about that in our briefing, that he's still working with that. These are things that complement this. This is, like the speaker said, there's another tool in the toolbox to allow, we're really going to target those in between the ports, because that's what the bill says, and those people, because that's where the ones that they can't get asylum, and they're the ones that are going to be trying to smuggle. They're the ones that are trying to have bad records. And so it's a complementary to what the Stone Garden progress is. It's just another tool in the toolbox.
Sheriff, I'm pardon me. So the Border Patrol Sector Chief, Sean McGough, informed us about 2 or 3 weeks ago that our sector is about 70% down from this time a year ago. This effort by the state, will it allow that to continue? Is there anything that, in a way that is worded to give those agents on the ground resources from the state back up so that they can move along, and what are your words on that?
Well, I'll let some of my colleagues add on to what I say, but it is true that this part's down. If you look at the report that we got from Sheriff Wilmot earlier, the Tucson sector is the busiest on the whole southern border. They're really increased. They've had a major increase in the San Diego section, and so we're not sure why the cartels are moving things around, and it's because they move them around. They have. And then there's different cartels along the border. We believe this bill, if this passed by the will of the people, will continue to push those cartels to do their business elsewhere. Go to California, go somewhere else, because they know that they will have, when they get in the Tucson sector especially, because they're going to the desert. They're not give-ups. They're not trying to turn themselves in. That will really say you're going to get incarcerated, and you're not just going to get to stand in line and come back. So that's going to be a big deal that's going to continue to drive that down. That's the whole reason that we think that the people is going to say, we want to take control of our border, because we don't want people in our backyard. We want to protect our kids. We want to protect our families, and especially when fentanyl is concerned. So,
One more question.
Anybody have anything?
Well, I'll do a follow-up on that. Part of the reason, Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the reason is the parole process that was started by some of the NGOs. They're being paroled at the Darien Gap and other places in Central America, and they're being flown over our border. So they're not even coming onto our soil from the border. They're being flown into an airport and processed from there. We did hear from the sheriffs and Border Patrol that the Tucson sector that's being overrun, some of those people are being shipped here to process. So they're not capturing them on the ground in Yuma, but they're capturing them in Tucson and moving them here to move them through the pipeline, because the sector is a little bit down.
George Zito said we had one more question. If not,
And then let me just wrap up real fast. And I just want to close on the money aspect. Because look, it's a correct answer to ask, right? Because nothing is free. Everything, it costs something. But, when you look at the crimes that are occurring from what's happening with this open border, like if I hear another story about an 8 or 9-year-old girl who's been raped coming across the border, or a 10-year-old or 12-year-old or 15-year-old who's been killed by fentanyl, like, price does not matter to me anymore. And you have legislators I know in my caucus that feel the same way, that if it means that we have to go to the budget and put as much money as we need to stop that 10-year-old from being raped as she comes across this border, I will spend, I don't care how many millions of dollars. This is the part that makes me so angry, is that we're here arguing about this bill when we're trying to save lives. I'm done hearing those stories. This is not the America this is not the America my parents came to. They came here for freedom, they came here for a better life, and we're hearing these stories, And the argument is we don't have enough money to do it. It's not a good reason. And so I'm just praying that the people of Arizona do what's right. We're going to figure out the rest. If there are kinks that we need to figure out, we will do it at the legislature to make sure this is done right. Whether it's next year or the year after, we can do that. So I want to thank you guys all for being here. I appreciate you allowing us to come to Yuma. Thank you again, Representative Dunn, Representative Carbone, Representative Pena, and Supervisor Lyons, Hospital. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. God bless.